Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing something along the same lines as we did last week, but slightly different because I want to use some different colors. So I have some squares of acid-free tissue paper and I've got some golden fluid acrylics there in Azo Gold and Alizarin Crimson. And what I'm going to do is crinkle up all of these little squares of tissue paper, line them up on some parchment paper, wet them down, and add that color to them. And if you saw my video last week, this will not look like anything new. If you didn't get a chance to see that yet, though, I will put a card for that in the end of the video for you. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started here, and you will see what I am talking about. This is actually a sheet of parchment paper that I have been using and reusing. That's why it looks like that. This is not part of the design at all, and I hope it's not too distracting. It'll be a little difficult to see the tissue paper squares once they're wet and put down there. It was difficult to actually see them in person, but once I start adding the color to them, you'll be able to see where I'm working. So my thought process on this one was to have like some reds and orangey reds, yellowish kind of feel. And you can see there when I add that on, it spreads over the tissue papers, which are starting to be able to see the shape of them now that there's some color down. And some of them I'm mixing the alizarin crimson onto along with that azo gold. Incidentally, I will have links to all of the products that I am using in this video at the end for you. But I just keep spraying it with water to move the color around, and then this is what I end up with once everything was dried. I let that dry overnight. And I have an 11 by 14 inch cradled board here that I painted black and let dry completely. I'm using Liquitex matte medium and just an old gift card to apply these like paper tiles to, and I'm tearing them in half because I want some uneven edges. I'm not looking for anything uniform here. I really actually am looking for the opposite of that, and I just go ahead until the whole entire board is completely covered. And what I'm going to do here next is allow this first layer to dry and decide if I want to add another layer on top of it or not, which I do end up deciding because I could see a little too much of the black underneath, and the color itself didn't bother me, but the uniformity of the black squares did. And so I decided I wanted to have a little bit of those orangier pieces on there to warm it up a little bit and also to distort some of that regular pattern underneath. So once that top layer was dried, I'm using some of those other sheets just to cover again. I wasn't sure if I'd maybe want a third layer, and I definitely could have, but I liked the way that it was looking when this was done, so I just decided to keep it as is. Another reason why I wanted to add that layer on top of there is because I'm going to be doing some ink work on top of this, and I wanted it to be just slightly lighter in tone so that the ink work would show up. At least that's what I had my original idea was. So what I'm doing here is I found the center and I am making two circles here because my plan was going to be to draw those circles in ink and then do a design based on those. However, as soon as I had those drawn up, I completely changed gears and ended up deciding to do some collage. So I have these collage papers that I made a while back on the gel plate, and these are just, there's no regular design. These are just kind of solid colors with a little bit of crinkled design in there just from the paper itself. And so I ended up cutting those circles out to match the sizes that I had drawn on there. You can see me there just kind of remeasuring so that I can draw that out. If I had decided this beforehand, I wouldn't have had to draw those on there at all. I could have just gone ahead and cut those out and glued them down, but it all ended up well. So again, using some of the matte medium on there. That's what I'm using there is a more liquid one. What I was using to glue down the squares was a more gel-based, heavy-bodied one. The only real reason for that is because some of the tiles were a little bit crumpled up still and had a little bit of a thickness to them, so I wanted to make sure they had they were going to adhere really well. And this tissue paper that I was just using there on top is just a thin sheet. I swear every time I start recording, the fire whistle has a heyday, so I keep cutting that part out, but you may hear a little bit, so I do apologize. All right, so I'm going in here with some Bombay black ink and my bamboo skewer. This is something that I do on a lot of my pieces. If you've seen any of them, I'm sure this is looking familiar to you. I will post a couple videos for those at the end for you as well. I like using the bamboo skewer as opposed to, you know, just a marker or something, which would have given me a similar effect, because I can really, it looks more organic, and I don't want it to be too contrived and controlled. And you'll even notice that I'm holding that back a little further and not really like I would hold a drawing implement, because I really want to emphasize the organic nature of the shapes and the lines that I'm making and the imperfection of those lines. That's really what I'm going for here. So you can see that I'm actually going, excuse me, over some of those 2 or 3 times, and in a very imperfect manner, to purposely get some scraggly looking sketchy lines, which is what I wanted for this piece. And when I was done with the ink portion, I decided to go in with a Micron pen and get some different line quality in there. So I got some very thin lines. And again, I'm pushing this organic kind of idea. These aren't exactly plants, they aren't exactly branches, but they have that kind of look to them, and it just has a visceral, organic feel to it, and that's what I was going for with the piece. The colors in the background have a sort of visceral sense to them as well, kind of that blood red color, and while contrasting with the teal, it really plays along with those kind of raw organic lines that I'm making. So once I go in and sketch out all of the lines initially, I'm going back in and thickening up some of the areas where the lines join, almost like you would do with a norographic drawing. I'm not going in on every single joint, but just where I want them to appear a little thicker and darker. And then once that top one was done, I'm going through and kind of doing the same type of design on that larger bottom circle as well. First, I'm sketching out 3 lines, and then I'm going to go in and make each one of those lines its own individual branch-like element on there. And I like to get the whole design down first before I go in and work on thickening the lines. I could do it as I go, but I find that the continuity is a little better if I do it this way, because I'm doing all of one thing at once and then going in and working on the more tedious part. And speaking of tedious, that's why I didn't include the entire drawing process. That's why I like to usually edit and skip out some of that, because you see me doing it, I'm describing what I'm doing. But to sit here and watch the whole entire process in real time, I mean, this video would end up being like 3 hours long, and nobody wants to watch that. So after that was on there, I still wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do. I was thinking more line into the red area, but then I thought maybe a little more collage was actually what it needed, because I was really enjoying the contrast between the teal and those warm reds. So I decided to add some more collage elements in each of the papers that I did the original circles in, because those are actually, while they look very similar, I used 2 different collage papers for each of those circles. So I'm just going in and cutting out some loose, rough, I guess, petal shapes there, and I'm playing with placement. I do already have the line around those. I think I didn't include that part in the video, but I used some painter's tape and just painted a black line bordering the whole entire piece. And because that was already on there, I knew that I needed to make sure that those petal pieces weren't going to be infringing in that space, because that was meant to be a border, and it would look messy if that happened. So I wanted to make sure that was not happening. And I'm just using some more of the matte medium there to glue all of those little pieces down. At this point, I'm thinking about how I might want to treat those, because I feel like they need a little something in them, and I'm leaning towards probably going in and doing some more pen work in them once they are dry, and that is ultimately what I ended up doing. So I went ahead and got those glued down, and in the next segment, you're going to see me working on some of those drawings. Before I get to the drawing, though, I did decide I wanted to put smaller circles in each of the three spaces directly above, in the middle, and at the bottom of the circles that you'll see there. So the first one I went in with my tool and did a little bit of a more perfect looking one, but then I realized it wasn't that perfect anyway after I, spent some time with the scissors trying to cut out something that small. So I just freehanded the other two, and they honestly look just about the same as far as that goes, so I saved myself a little bit of time and aggravation. But now I'm just going in and drawing similar branch type structures inside of each of these petals, and once those are all drawn in on both the top and the bottom, again doing the initial design first, then I go in on all four of those and work on making the lines a little thicker in places and putting some of those joining elements in there where the two pieces meet, where the two lines meet, to make that a little bit thicker, just to make it a little more visually interesting, because the Micron pens are very thin by design, so some places I wanted them just to be a little bit thicker. And then I put a line joining the small circles to the larger circles. And here I'm going in with a charcoal pencil because I just felt like everything needed to be outlined a little bit. It wasn't bad the way it was, but I just knew that this would make it a little bit better. And that's just some scratch paper that I have. It's actually the user's manual from my recording rig. I just want to make sure that I'm not smearing charcoal all over everything as I'm working. So I went ahead and outlined everything here. And once that was done, I decided to call it finished, and I got it sprayed up with my Krylon triple thick crystal clear acrylic spray, and this is what we ended up with. I'm really happy with the way it turned out. I love those contrasting colors. You will see me use the teals and the reds together a lot in my pieces. But yeah, you'll have to let me know what you think in the comments. And this piece will be up for sale in my Etsy shop. There's going to be a link for that in the comments as well. And if you liked what you saw here, give me a thumbs up and subscribe, all of the YouTube things for me. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me again today, and I look forward to being back again next week with another video. Have a great one.